"How's the weather out there?" Ryman said. "Worse than it's ever been. Best it's ever going to be. Unless you can make it, Professor," Sebastian reported, with a hint of dissatisfaction at one aspect or another of this assessment. "By the way, I'm captain of this ship, so call me captain, and try not to answer me with as much sass next time. Be businesslike." "Ignore him. You can be sassy all you like. He's so burned out he doesn't notice," Allison advised Sebastian from the seat next to him. If you want to know why Allison was sitting next to him, it was because Sebastian's first name was Alvis, which could be altered to Ali, which meant that they were besties. In truth, they had been spending an awful lot of time together for a more scientific reason, but we'll get to that shortly. All the heroes were lined up at a long desk of workstations. In another row behind them sat all the bigwigs from the human fleet, eager to be part of this historic voyage, and equally eager to be on the only ship with engines strong enough to get through the hyperstorm raging around Zeta Nova Cydonia. It was the fancy ferry the Galatians had used to get to the Holy See some weeks prior, now modified with a transverse jump drive and an extremely unsightly additional hull that was larger than the original design. It was a pirate freighter full of exotic materials dredged from the Holy See and covered in extra propellant chutes to get as much thrust as possible. Basically, imagine a luxurious yacht bolted to the front of a cargo liner and filled with the most important and famous atoms available to human civilization, be they atoms of flesh or fuel. "First stop, Zumu Hypershunt," Contreras announced from the front of the room. She indicated the route planned on the main screen. It was much bigger and fancier than the Gargantua's. "Estimated time of arrival, 12.51 minutes, with an error width of 23.88 minutes. "So, we might get there before we leave," Demarcon Hannon snarked from the back. "Don't rule out anything with this lot and this universe," Admiral Olympus said with a smile. Hannon didn't return the gesture, pouting and looking at his palladium-plated ultra shoes instead. The computers were put to sleep for a transverse jump from the Holy See into the maelstrom of hyperspace. Then it was full engines a-go-go to blast the ship, named the Agostini, vaguely towards the core systems. Hyperspace looked like a mess of blue swirling spaghetti, according to the instrumentation. Or perhaps water slides, all leading to just about where the Agostini was already, twisting and turning and changing position, merging like water, splitting like hairs, and blue like blue spaghetti. Trust me, if you were from the future, you'd be very familiar with this dish. "Pope Ryman, may I have a word or 500? Baird asked over the top of Ryman's monitor. "In private," she added, when Ryman replied only by glancing up from his screen with a look that contained all the fury of a universe span's worth of "can't you see I'm doing something, you selfish brute," condensed into a smile that says, "I would be delighted." They snuck out into a semi-private hallway connecting the bridge to one of its two onboard spas. Note though that Titanian was following Ryman as his bodyguard, and about 20 people followed Titanian. Still, that's pretty private for a pope these days. Let us forgive Baird the interruption, as her business turned out to be very much to do with the notes Ryman had been reading over. "Personally, I think we do it," he said, deftly deflecting his statement into a question at the last syllable as he saw Baird's brow doubling down on its furrows. "If your girl is wrong, we would be endangering the entire universe," she said. "The destruction and purging of the anti-universe is the simplest and most reliable way forward. It would be irresponsible to do anything else." Irresponsible? Yes, that's quite a word for it. Wouldn't it also be irresponsible to destroy the only apparent life form ever known to exist outside of the universe? One, or ones, that can apparently provide basic communication and push against our reality like squid against the glass of their tank, I imagine, something like that. I'm sympathetic to the idea of not killing them. I'm also sympathetic to the idea that a young amateur mathematician might discover something new simply by virtue of being the only one who cares to try something. Allison's method of saving the Great Ones from death isn't simply a distraction or kind-hearted gesture, it's a mathematical breakthrough unto itself, polarity switching and spatial inversions. It was the Lud-forsaken Great Ones themselves that showed her how it works, from what I can tell, and I'm convinced as I ever will be. Furthermore, on the topic of endangering the universe, let me tell you how I see it. We are like a gust of wind being blown across a scene of the universe being burned at the stake. We shall either grow the flame and have no impact on the outcome, or we shall blow it out. A more appropriate analogy would be we're going to set ourselves on fire in solidarity and hope there is some cosmic limit to the amount of fire permitted to exist at once, thus extinguishing the original blaze. Set ourselves on fire? No, set ourselves on insert unknown extra-universal process here. That's an even better analogy. And yet it fails to convince me. What about the numbers? The numbers? I've seen thousands of mathematically sound failed models. I've seen your old work, to put it bluntly. Then allow me to be even more blunt. It's my decision. The sector decided it already, all those cycles ago. There's a contract, a charter, or something. Saving this universe is up to us. We thank you endlessly for your help, and ask for your help with one more teeny little universal spatial inversion through a hypergate. I think most of your staff are excited at the prospect. That they are. Well, you seem sure of it. Do I? Based on the words you're saying? Oh, those little things. I've got a lot of those to spare. And you're certain you understand the precise ramifications of the final step of her plan? Ramifications for you and yours? Ramifications we've elected to see through, Provost. By your decision or theirs? Everyone's. Because I think we all know that this probably won't end well for us without something radical, us in the personal sense, that is. We're the foremost criminals of the era, and for all our rubbing elbows with the greatest leaders of said era, I think all we've really done is convince them that none of them can afford to have us around a moment longer than we're needed. Both monetarily and politically, saying nothing of socially, but that's also a factor, I assure you. So, we'll do what Alipoot, Lieutenant Olympus, suggests. That's our decision. And I don't suppose I get any vote in your fate. I suppose you don't suppose, nor did I suppose you supposed to suppose, Provost. Yes. I almost trusted you for a moment there, Pope Ryman. And I almost doubted your judgment for a moment there, Provost Baird. Come on, one of those mathematically sound models will turn out to be Ludd's truth. As they say, it's always in the last place you look. One last shot at a scientific triumph here at the end of the universe. I increasingly think you don't see the end of the universe as a bad thing. I said nothing of the sort, but such things have been said here and there for a very long time, I have no doubt. Now, let's activate forbidden tech and see if the Great Ones have anything to say about it. May scientific triumph be the universe's epitaph, Baird said, finally smiling. Whether it was what she wanted all along, or whether Ryman's end times madness was more contagious than his recent medical checkup suggested, the IEC was about to carry out a particular variant on the Save the Universe plan devised by none other than Alison Olympus. Originally, the Academy wished to send matter into the anti-universe to create annihilation events, with the antimatter abundant there, and possibly consisting of the bodies of the Great Ones. This would effectively leak energy back from the anti-universe and reverse the course of universal collapse, albeit losing a little energy to end space, such that this process couldn't be run back and forth forever. And annihilation events are about as painful on those receiving them as they sound. What if the Great Ones didn't need to be burned in the fires of science to renew the age of humanity? It was a question that only those as beta neutrino torched as Alison dared ask. Ask and you shall receive. Such was ever the case with the Great Ones. Searching with meditative aimlessness and hope reflected in hopelessness, she had half-accidentally scribbled out some equations that aligned the universes. It wasn't as crazy as it looked, and even had some evidence behind it thanks to the analysis of all the recent hyperholes opening and evaporating during the hyperstorm. As for what her plan involved precisely, let's see it for ourselves. The IEC Agostini skillfully curved its way along the calm boundary of the core systems, and dumped itself into real space via a brand new hyperhole currently less than a day's spurt from Reta Midna. Here they were to meet with a civilian fleet, whose story was nigh on as dramatic as everything our heroes recently endured. You see, during the restitution period after the recent clash, it was very hard for the people of Perseus Sector to not discover that the universe was about to implode. It's good grist for the gossip mill, to be sure. You might imagine that this caused a certain amount of upset. It was also relatively easy for this fatal factoid to become entangled with reports that the IEC's experimental time explosion technique was the trigger for the rapid collapse. Now, would it be fair to say that this made the current predicament all the IEC's fault? Moot question, because the notion of fairness was depreciated in Perseus even before this story began. Suffice it to mention that a great deal of rebellion is being glossed over in order to bring you the final steps of our crew's journey. And for those essential assistants who remained loyal to the cause, their tribulations in preparing the grand experiment to end all experiments cannot be understated. To prove as much, I shall not state them at all. The end result was that battle-scarred fuel tankers and half-crewed freighters were waiting as promised for a final shipment towards Zumu Hypershunt. Pieces of the Gargandua still lay in the Hypershunt's upper dish. On the inside, a lot of housekeeping had been carried out by scientific loyalists to prepare for the big day. Even before the work, the machine wasn't all that far from being operational. When the structure was first forged into being by the motherships of the human domain, the assumption had been it would last forever. That turned out to only require 1,000 or so cycles to achieve, so mission accomplished. We cannot get into the details of how a hypershunt works, so let's only concern ourselves with what it does in the end. Once the new arrivals delivered the final pieces of the puzzle, including the all-important mathematics, the hypershunt was activated. It was underwhelming from afar, with nothing much seeming to change. The main action took place at the base of the structure, orbiting low enough to skim the surface of Zumu. Plasma was taken in and processed into what I will call hyper-energy, energy stored in the form of contained hyperspace oscillations. Again, this doesn't look like anything, and it certainly didn't do anything. To make something of it all requires the final step, turning on a tap. Yes, a hypershunt must have a corresponding hypertap, which is able to harness the packets of hyperspace oscillations to which it is bound in order to output godlike supplies of energy in a variety of forms. It was among the rarest of known domain devices. It looked like a large cross-headed screwdriver, large enough to cradle like a baby, sharp enough to use as a stake if things got really messy, a risk that certainly made the assessment. How could the IEC possibly acquire or build this ancient tech? We can forego the suspense. There were hundreds of them lining the walls of the tiny human-accessible lounges at the very top of the hypershunt, so that was the easy part. Having activated a colossal megastructure, which was now busily doing nothing with the force of a god, the crew had to return to the hard part. The hypertap needed to be delivered to where energy was needed. The chosen location for that was the old Galatian hypergate. As a refresher, hypergates were ring-shaped devices the size of planets that were used to transport matter through hyperspace. What's hyperspace, you ask? Well, these days it's hard to find anyone who knows. In the old days, travel between two gates was instantaneous no matter where in the universe they were. The only downside was the huge volume of antimatter fuel required to make them work, and there is no doubt that their use was partially to blame for the dramatic shortening of the universe's lifespan, on account of the slight problem with the business concerning the anti-universe. These gates had a pair of advantages which meant that one could be found in every other star system. 1. They were almost impossible to disassemble or damage. And 2. They were always found in strange, distant orbits, where they sat silently avoiding all that troubled the sector around them. This state of being ensured their hidden-in-plain-sight survival all this time, albeit not for lack of desperate and costly salvaging attempts. Hence, the 30 or so core systems had 12 hypergates between them, and no one had any business with a single one. That is, until those pesky Galatians got far enough along in working out what had caused them to stop working on a fateful day hundreds of cycles ago. What do you know, these days it's considered to have been the product of a slight problem with business concerning the anti-universe. Cosmic karma, if you will, and most won't. Ever-growing mechanical understanding of the great machines had birthed the Galatian master plan, to use the gates to create a slight problem with the business concerning our universe inside the anti-universe. In other words, bomb the anti-universe in such a way that the cosmic calamity will happen in reverse and very quickly, staving off death for at least one side of the arrangement, for at least one more unit of time, as Omega would put it. But our heroes knew better, although knew is a very strong word for it. The Great Ones were perhaps the most sensational scientific discovery of all time, and would be treated as such. Yet the final voyage to Galatia was made in tense silence. Mumbling calculations continued to be made, and the AI cores were whirring away, trying to factor the increasing sponginess of hyperspace into the mathematical models awaiting deployment. Amid this gentle din, Ryman had his hands on his head, concentrating as hard as he could. "I can't do it," he eventually said. "I can't hear a thing." "Not everyone can, supposedly," Sebastian said, noting something down. "Maybe it's the pressure getting to me, Sebi, but I think I wouldn't entirely mind volunteering for some rather invasive brain surgery right about now. Your lady asked me to tell you to stop saying things like that, Pope." No, it's not at all selfish relief, Sebi. I mean, because if we achieve our goal, if we can fish the Great Ones from their universe and protect them, then the effect of their tendrils prodding on reality, and the relation to beta neutrino emissions on the human brain, is going to be a lost avenue of research. So many people seem to hear those signals as voices. We could run a whole cohort of doctorates investigating that, I think. I think people have always heard all kinds of signals as voices for the whole existence of our species. We work closely with voices. It's a natural crossing of wires when something unusual happens, like seeing a face in a piece of burnt toast. Unless the Great Ones also influence the patterns on burnt toast. Yes, well, that's another theory we'll lose the ability to test. Let's try not to worry about it. Trying not to worry about the Great Ones is the #1 cause of mental health issues related to the Great Ones. Didn't you read the paper our own Mr. Nessus published? I'm going to try and get some sleep. You really should do the same. That's been very difficult these last 300 cycles. Nafi, how long until we reach the ring?
50 hours and 50 minutes. Ooh, what symmetry.
Long enough to sleep, but also long enough to change my mind about all this. Not good, huh?
I don't really understand why you are experiencing such heavy stress. It's inhibiting and optional, no upsides.
Well, Nafi, you see, there is a certain event transpiring that is very important to me, and many others. It's called the end of the universe.
The end of the universe is not of importance to you,
Nafi boldly claimed.
Even I do not consider it a deal more than 3 orders of magnitude bigger than the size of the deal relevant to you. All entities that perceive the universe will at some point cease to perceive the universe. To that individual, the universe ceases to exist. If something happens that is indistinguishable from it ceasing to exist, it is perceived no differently. Most people who have ever lived already know what it's like for there to not be a universe. All you need to do is recall a memory from before you were born, and you will know it too. It's nothing to be afraid of, individually. This is because the non-existence of the universe is ultimately a universal experience, hee.
With wisdom like that, it's no wonder you're illegal. Thanks, Nafi.
You can do it, human. You can save the universe and then die, thus achieving nothing you'll remember.
And with such sterling cheerleading, the tense mood carried on as the Agostini drifted through the Galatea system towards the silent giant in distant orbit. The ring was hard to see until very close, as despite being as wide as a planet in diameter, its structure was as thin as a single ship. It was given detail against the empty backdrop by the uncommon gathering of ships around it. Floating like spores of mold, the ships present included scrappy, semi-spaceworthy fleets from all the power's battered navies, waiting to split up the far too united human leadership back into the comforting embrace of war. Plenty of gawkers and scavengers milled about, ready to profit from all this going cataclysmically wrong, and that was a fairly sound investment to be sure. One larger feature stood out from this gathering of dust. A hefty, industrial-looking space station was hovering near the middle of the ring, displaying the flashes of engine pulses and welding lasers of a body very much still under construction. Its nameplate was currently being installed, Augur of Starlight. Ryman recognized its structure, having overseen construction of a similar station near Zumu. It was an antimatter factory. It was to be the first vessel to enter the anti-universe, if all went to plan, and it was to be Ryman and crew's new home. It's pretty nice, Ryman said after the grand tour. It is the finest thing we could put together with limited notice, Baird told him as they looked over the luxurious concourse. It was not so much like the Galatian Academy as it was directly transplanted from the Academy station's lower bounds. Halls of learning, corridors of power, toilets of convenience, all presented in palettes of glorious faux gold and poisonous water features. It was certainly the nicest antimatter factory the sector had ever seen, and for a crew that wasn't going to exceed double digits, it was enough real estate to quite literally stage a mini-civilization. Finally passing the torch of rulership of this place to me, eh? Ryman said. Don't get too excited, Pope. Mine's still bigger. Ah, the phrase that punctuates my every triumph. There will not be enough oxygen to light a torch either, Contreras noted from nearby. We shall keep you supplied as long as we can, Baird said. Of course, we'll have no way of knowing whether you got up and running, so it will seem silly to most. But we have learned a little thing about 2 aspects of life once considered too trite for academia: peace and hope. Given that every moment we stand here, thousands kill each other in the name of doom, I say we get this show on the universe's most theoretical road yet, Mars interjected cheerfully. I am forced by powers quite beyond my control to agree with you, Mr. Nessus, Ryman nodded. As assorted final ship-shaping business carried on, Ryman went to the Agostini's lounge to butt in on the playful, warlike quibbling of Dord, Hannon, Cantor, Sun, Daddy Olympus, and fathers of various names from the Luddic Church. He attempted to give them a simultaneous farewell, with the speed and grace of a pope who hadn't paid for his parking, yet the politicians were having none of it. After quibbling even more about whether further quibbling was appropriate, it was settled that everyone should be allowed to give the pope a parting word for the record, and a parting sum of obliging cash for the record keepers. We always knew something like this was coming, Dord claimed with strained credulity. Never could be prepared enough. We've got this far though. I knew I was right to spare you. That's a statement which may age very poorly, Hegemon, Ryman noted. Yes, strike that, Dord agreed, transmitting more credits to the record keepers with a flick of his mind cursor. No matter what happens, we'll make sure your scheme carries on. The sector has no choice now. We must return to order. Perhaps you could do that by working together instead of killing each other. We've proven it works well enough, haven't we? That's a statement which may age very poorly, Pope. Then I shall leave it all up to you, on your head be it. We've got peace and hope at home, and so on. Good luck, Hegemon. Make us better luck, Pope. Demarchon Hannon, Madame Sun, Cantor, and the Luddic delegation, whose members had changed since Ryman was first introduced as sects rose and fell in importance, all had similarly "we told you so" type ways of saying thank you and goodbye. There was at least some level of agreement that the temporary peace and cooperation would not end the microsecond their treaty obligations to the IEC officers were made void by the latter's vacation of the universe. Yes, the treaty small print accounted for this eventuality. Whether the future was to be one of iron-fisted order, half-oligarchic nationalism, libertarian robot hyper-technocracy, or Luddic syncretic nomadism with Carolingian characteristics, the main foundation for any of that was that a future took place at all, and a majority agreed the future should exist. 55-45, but the record keepers just put a majority to make it sound better. You've proven yourself a very good man, Mr. Ryman, Olympus said as the final lobbyist. It's not gotten me much to show for it though, eh? Ryman shrugged. A good man whose continuing stream of utter nonsense does himself a right royal disservice, if ever there was one. Thank you. As for utter nonsense, stare into the abyss and it consumes you. A nonsense man for nonsense times. And a man who doesn't let a lack of sleep get in the way of his good humour, or even his will to live. I trust you aren't mad at me for taking your children away from you, so to speak. For making my children among the foremost heroes of all human history, you mean? Yes, I suppose, albeit in a way that is indistinguishable from them dying. The nonsense man sees the nonsense in everything. No, Mr. Ryman, Noah, you are a fine chap all around, and I would have it no other way than for you to lead my delightful progeny on the mission of all missions, especially with what's said about all you lot's drama these days. They never really fit in out here anyhow, you know? Yes, that's clear enough. 2 fewer criminals in the family, and 2 more heroes. How's that for a parting gift to you? A fine gift, nay, the finest. I can't begin to tell you how proud of you all I am. Can't you? Skip to the end, then. I'm very proud of you all. Those are some mighty words. This sector would be very different with more of those. And a different sector it would take to deserve them. We'll make it so. Trust us as we trust you. You leave humanity in the best hands possible. Yes, those being the ones attached to its arms. Take care, Admiral. And you, my boy. I hope you've managed to resolve everything with your Tritachyon woman. Always a tricky business. And be careful with Ali. You know how she gets around you. I do? Wait, what does... With an unfortunately metaphorical swish of his cape, Admiral Olympus rushed off to the shuttles to leave the station. After seeing them away, Ryman and company were swept off their feet by the Galatians, emerging from the shadows like rats in the night now the politicians were gone. They were eager to get started, i.e. get finished, with the grand experiment. Yes, okay, this is it then, he assured the tenured masses. Allison's upstairs in that computer lab with the quants. Let's see if we've got our numbers straight and do whatever in Lud's honest space-time we think we're doing while we still can. Titanian's nearby gaggle of attachés gave a too cheery cheer, and then seemed embarrassed to have read the mood incorrectly. Titanian scoffed at them, unimpressed. The poor sods. Ever the spy's maid, never the spy. Whoever assigned them to stalk the IEC probably didn't think they'd be sending their little minions into another universe. If those spy masters are still alive, they probably don't care. A far cry from the extra-universal care of Chief Science Officer Alison Olympus, who had graduated to leading her own science team from the station's control room. With reams of handwritten notes, she had instructed the Galatians on the precise way to tune the ring to perform a non-standard yet hypothetically possible function, turning a universe inside out. It involved N-space resonators valued at approximately 4 times the combined worth of all remaining planets. Yet despite the best efforts of many, you can't put a price on peace and hope. To be more specific, you shouldn't waste time putting a price on something no one wants to buy. "We must hurry," Alison insisted as everyone gathered in the control room. "Every second that passes, their universe is getting bigger. That makes our job harder. And I think it's probably making the Great Ones bigger." "Too big to fit through the gate?" Ra asked. "Like, those Great Ones take up their whole universe or something, right? So we're going to pull a whole universe through a space that's only wide as half a day's solar sailing?" "Yes," Alison said, with the most unreadably neutral expression she could muster. As her eyes focused on something half a day's solar sailing away, Mars chipped in. "I have, unbelievably, only one question to ask before I officially sign off on all this." That he needed to sign off on anything was news to everyone, but they allowed him his question all the same. "Have we asked these Great Ones what they think about this? I gather some methods of communication are alleged to exist, especially among our digital compatriots." Attention turned to Enrico Treris and Nafi sitting by the wall. We all need to be plugged in sometimes.
"They are aware we have the capability to pass into their universe,"
Nafi claimed solemnly.
"They can feel the bridge this ring is beginning to create. They are scared of it."
"No, don't be scared," Alison cried out. "It's going to save you." "Save them from you killing them. You had better hope they don't find that insulting," Enrico said. "Besides, I need to tell you all something quite important. We can't open the gate today." "Actually, I won't too much mind if the Great Ones disagree with us. Just keeping the records. My job, you know," Mars said. "Not because of that. Because the hypertopographical data has become too difficult to process. We really tried as much as we could. But since the last minute has arrived, I must reveal our failure. We can't do these calculations in real time because of this collapse. That means we cannot hold the gate on its target for more than an instant. Given that this is the case, sending through matter to annihilate their universe is the only reasonable option. We go with the old plan." No, you said it would be fine. You said we could do it," Alison pleaded. "I did. This brings me no happiness. I know it is wrong. I know we shall regret it forever. A displeasure you fleshies cannot and will not understand. You can only imagine the weight with which I share the truth all the same." The science team was up in arms, in the limbic sense only. Alison had thoroughly converted them to her reverence of the Great Ones. Ryman felt a sinking feeling too, not because of the Great Ones, but because if they couldn't follow through on their plan, the IEC would be left facing the hungry tatters of old-fashioned reality. After some back and forth explaining, he summarized the problem thus. "We can't keep the link between the hypershunt and the hypertap once we take it through the gate, because we need hypertopographical data on the gate itself, and that's now changing in a way we can't measure or predict because of this storm and the collapse and the Great Ones and the slight problem, and there's no way to get that data, so we'll only have one moment of solid operation, and then an unknown window after that, as short as 0 moments. And then, we'd have failed the plan and missed the chance to blow up the Great Ones and save the universe the old-fashioned way. That right?" "Precisely that," Enrico said. "So we must proceed with the original plan. It is simpler. Only one moment of matter transfer is needed. Send the tap through, and matter will annihilate the Great Ones at once. It will be over before we know it, and the results will be instant." No, come on, give us a chance," Alison protested. "Miss Olympus, what you have been experiencing these last few days, and indeed few cycles, is precisely that chance," Provost Baird cut in. "If we have no choice, then there is no sense in you asking us to choose differently. I am sorry." "Is there any way, Noah?" Contreras quietly asked Ryman. The question was invited by a faint grin working its way onto Ryman's face, and the light of rapidly scrolling text on his head-mounted computer. "Not really, but Well, Ryman mumbled. There's quite possibly the longest shot we've ever seen. Something I was thinking about recently. Might be a good excuse to test it. After some more bickering and gesturing at screens, Ryman clapped his 4 hands. With all eyes on him, he walked dramatically over to the computer lab's energy drink fridge, or the nearest one I should say, and removed from it a yellow beverage. He held it aloft like a vial of ambrosia pilfered from the stores of Olympus, to use a deliberately chosen simile. The activity of the human brain is able to produce, it is said, subtle beta-neutrino signals, which, in the right circumstances, slip through n-space and proceed into the anti-universe, he lectured. He opened the drink and waved it around like it was a prop in a magic act. That's another deliberately chosen simile. It occurred to me in the last few minutes that there is one usually inaccessible source of data on the hypertopography of the gate network, which we can read using nothing more than the mere act of thinking really, really hard. A little blood thinner and super sugar, mixed in a bottle made from most likely coextolian oil mixed with highly treated human dental enamel, is the only thing we need to save this universe. Has he finally broken? Baird asked the room. But Allison shot out of her seat, ran to the fridge, and grabbed another bottle. To the Great Ones, our universe is tiny, just like theirs is to us, she claimed. They can see, feel, touch, everything. No, Mars cut in. Do not tell me that all your numbers and machines have all been trumped by the idea that if we ask the Great Ones to save us, they will. Why not? I'm going to save them, Allison replied. Mars was sufficiently dumbfounded that he didn't reply, and this was taken as some sort of agreement with the idea by other would-be skeptics. You know how the gates work, don't you, Sebi? Ryman said, running over to Sebastian and poking him in the chest. Yeah, I'm trying to see where you're going with this, Professor, Sebastian replied earnestly. If the Great Ones can latch onto the gate, they can tell us where it is, no matter the storm, obviously. Sebastian looked at Ryman's glowing face. He looked around the room and saw faces asking him to make sense of the rogue Pope's ramblings. He looked at his notes, seeing only the impossibility of the mathematics involved in getting the data they needed via readings or simulations. Yeah, obviously, he finally said, grabbing Ryman's energy drink and necking it in one smooth motion. Praise the Great Ones! Titanian cheered from the corner, although it was less an exultation and more a command. What followed was an impromptu guided meditation in which a room of the sector's foremost minds were asked to think really hard about an extra-universal connection. You may recall the last time our heroes did this back on Remainder, and so have some sympathy with the notion that it, at the very least, wasn't a totally ineffectual or utterly hopeless approach. The Great Ones were listening, in their own inscrutable sort of way, and the energy drinks made it easier for them to hear you, in their own carcinogenic sort of way. Ready, Nafi? Ryman asked the AI sitting in his lap as he sat cross-legged on the floor.
Beta-neutrino detectors are active,
Nafi reported.
There are lots already, a very powerful background. It will be hard for the Great Ones to hear your prayers.
On the off chance this doesn't go anywhere, shall we begin the necessary arrangements for the backup plan? Baird asked, failing to sound as polite as she hoped. If you must, ye of little faith, Ryman said. Baird decided to mark this moment as an official transition into senility, and went off to carry on the Annihilation mission, not to mention deal with the fact she had received a lot of messages from the faction leaders, who were watching proceedings from afar with a mix of horror, confusion, anger, and deep esoteric awe. Soon, desks and computers were shoved aside, and a debate on whether they all needed to hold hands was settled with the answer of, if you would like to. On the floor, our heroes, a large number of Academy scientists, a gaggle of former spies, and some self-proclaimed devotees of Lud dragged from the station crew, all formed a multi-layered circle. Ryman, holding Contreras' hand, because he would like to, asked the Chief Science Officer to lead proceedings, since this was a highly scientific matter. Everyone, when you hear my words, I want you to send them into the heavens with your minds, the Chief Science Officer instructed. The scientists nodded hopelessly. A long time ago, we humans and our bonkers computer friends found a way to skip around our galaxy freely. We called them gates. Great Ones, I know you have felt our gates. When they fired, they resounded in your universe like a drum and awoke you from your primal slumber in the burning heat of the first nebula. and this energy empowered that nebula to move, to shift, to coalesce, and even to evolve. The result of this was something truly great. Now those ancient drums must ring again. The same drums that birthed you into being will also be your salvation. Because bad people are planning to destroy your universe. We can get you out, but we have to know where the gate beside us is in the form of extra-universe coordinate space. Now, I don't think I have time to explain extra-universal coordinate space. Not that I don't understand it, I just don't have the time. It's like some numbers. We shall open our minds to your wisdom. We shall listen for your sign, for your knowledge of these numbers. And if you can give us them for long enough, we can make you safe, forever, in a universe we can share. So please, wrap your delightful tendrils around the ring you can feel close by, and hold its place in your mind. Let us be of one mind, of one universe. At last, we can be together.
Allison went on to essentially repeat this prayer in paraphrased terms, its factual content and spiritual intent landing further and further from everyone else in the circles with each word spoken. And yet...
Beep, beep, beep. There is a very strange signal. What could it be? Ooh!
Nafi reported. Ryman leapt up from his place, stumbled over several grumbling bodies, and plugged a computery gizmo into Nafi's port.
That's not the regular signal. Is that even the Great Ones? He asked aloud.
Moore copped the signal, and the confusion was mutual.
It's not coming from the ring,
Allison noted sadly. Don't rule it out, Alipu, Ryman said. In fact, I'd say the most remarkable property of this signal is that it doesn't seem to be coming from anywhere close by. It's shifted, I think. We need analysis. Right, everyone, there's a beta neutrino scanner on the Agostini's Demidar. Back to the docks. With this, Ryman led the prayer circles at a run to get on board the Agostini again. In so doing, he overtook Baird, stomping down the gangway tunnel.
It's working! By the Great Ones, it's working! Mars informed her.
And who wouldn't fully believe a drunken, displaced diplomat turned massage machine salesman running through the halls of a secret space station shouting about the Great Ones? In context, it was shockingly credible. The hooted and hollered news of Great One's intervention caused the science gaggle to gain magnetic properties, drawing additional throngs to squeeze into the bridge of the Agostini. There, the main screen was soon set to display the myriad properties of the mysterious beta neutrino signal. Properties that meant just about nothing to just about everyone, yet surely the buzz couldn't all be for nothing. We had hoped it would be linked to the extra-universal coordinate matrix of the hypergate, Ryman explained. But this signal is old, shifted. At first it looks like a signal that's degraded over time. I thought it might be some time nonsense, yet I think instead it's the more familiar space nonsense. In other words, this is a signal that originated very far away, being sent forward on its journey by the wafting massage of the Great One's many tendrils. Sebi, see if you can think of a more scientific way of putting that.
There is no time for science. This signal isn't what we need,
Contreras said.
No, it isn't,
Ryman sighed. I think it's something utterly fascinating, surely groundbreaking, and surely a piece of a new frontier of knowledge. Yet my job is to give that world to others, not revel in it. And it would be a dereliction of my duty to... A dereliction? Hang on a second, 1 second. Ryman began darting his head around and humming to himself.
Pope Ryman, I think you were about to say you were done, and we should save the universe immediately?
Baird soon asked.
No, because look, this signal, it's in beta neutrino format, but the pattern is way too normal. Normal, the opposite of the way the Great Ones operate. It's not a signal from them, it's only reflected, hence the shifting, the degradation. We've seen this before, haven't we, Nafi?
Ooh, it's like how Omega communicated,
Nafi realized.
Reflections from the anti-universe, but the original signals all come from our universe. Interesting. The Great Ones are passing us a message from someone. Who could it be?
We need to translate this into some known long-range protocols, treat it like a hyperspace signal, or, if the Great Ones really listened to our prayer, it'll be a ping from the gate network, Allison interrupted, both to dramatically finish the sentence and to announce the results of the analysis she had been secretly doing with pen and paper in the corner.
A ping from the... Everyone, this is Chief Science Officer Allison Olympus, foremost genius of the planet Western S, whisperer of the Great Ones, single yet unqualified to mingle, and by the looks of it, the late blooming goddess of the phrase, I told you so. Lad, move over, we've got another one, because look at this, look.
by Lud, that's not even all of it. How far does it... no way. As he ranted, Ryman revealed what he was seeing via the bridge's main screen. Everyone was bathed in the light of a detailed map of the Milky Way galaxy, zooming out and out, crowded with labels and markings. One part was marked the Perseus sector. There were dozens of others carved into the stars, all spotted with blinking gate indicators. It's the entire network. The signal is a gate nexus ping, Allison explained. It's got all the coordinates of all the gates, their current coordinates. This is nothing like the other maps people used to piece together, is it? It certainly isn't, Baird said. This is shocking. This can't be live. If there is a gate nexus tracking all the gates even now, then not only is the plan back on, but reconnecting a gate to another will be much faster. This data could reduce the time to establish a connection from thousands of cycles to hundreds of cycles. This assessment was a little disappointing for all those who were starting to read more potential into this discovery. Still, the idea that their grandchildren's grandchildren might be able to leave Perseus was the biggest hope that had touched the sector in a long time. Then, just as the crew were about to take the sliver of data they needed to get to work, something else drew someone's attention. I say, before you all go, that signal is more than meets the demidar. A Contreras-like voice said, "Do not be confused, this was simply the latent simulacra of the late Professor Calicor running on Enrico's AI core, delivered through a Contreras avatar body." "Good to hear from you again, Dr. Calicor," Baird said. "I trust all this is amusing you greatly." Yes. I heard someone was in the running for being made a goddess of I told you so, and I thought I had best come throw my hat in the ring and all. But seriously, I want you all to see something here. I promise it's worth the delay. Allow me to demonstrate to you the signature of a recorded log of the gate nexus, last received 230 cycles ago, in the old timeline's record, that is. Lud only knows what date that should be now. I happen to hold on to such data, being a nostalgic type, and it struck me quickly that something is different. If this signal is from the gate nexus, it is not the original repeating signal used in day-to-day operation. You see, look at the correlation index. Calorico Contreras was projecting an impromptu lecture onto the screen, one that few people in the room even understood. Enough though that word got around that it wasn't complete nonsense, and I assure you that's a hard point to press home. Furthermore, I was able to decode some of the junk data in the tail. It's less junk, more of an idiosyncratic algorithm of etiquette, popular in certain circles of those. Well, not those you'd find much of in Perseus, of snobs of a higher breed, to which I once ascribed my human being, if you'll forgive me. It's a fun little decoder job, and what it says is that the signal was sent, a very long time string this is, so I'll summarize it, as about 7 minutes ago, and that it is the 20,000th or so time it's been updated since cycle 186, as we'd have it. Most interestingly of all, it's marked as being sent to, quote, under the emergency protocols of the 5th Reformed Margin Redevelopment Committee, established 26,904 years Eref in search of life beyond the Eref margin sector. Then a flat-coloured picture of a strange cat-faced human looking very pleased with themselves, although perhaps that isn't relevant. Anyway, it is apparent the work of gathering the data this signal contains is being done day to day, then packaged into these broadcasts on the other side of the galaxy, out of charity, desperation, or who knows what else. Of one thing I'm certain, this is no automated signal. Whoa, what does that mean? Ra asked. He was the only one in the room not shocked into a silent pause. Someone, Sebastian whispered. Bloody hell! Ryman half coughed. His hands were shaking and his mouth was parting into a diabolical grin. Oh, there are people out there! Ra gasped as the room erupted into cheers and tears. For us, it is hard to imagine the feeling this momentous discovery brought about. If you wish to try, recall first that the lifelong sense of doom in the Perseus sector was very much linked to the complete lack of contact from the rest of the galaxy, who had long been presumed to have lost their own version of the AI wars, all snuffed out. At last, a scrap of a hint of a non-peer-reviewed analysis had come along to the contrary. For some, the weight of civilization lessened, raising spirits like a mind emerging from a nightmare to a day doldrum. For others, it offered hope of a more practical relief, of technology, of rescue. For many, the sense that time might as well end suddenly seemed as absurd as it had before this slight problem with the business concerning the anti-universe had come to the fore.
Look, Beta, the collapse has facilitated extra-sector communication of a niche but fruitful mode,
Nafi commented.
The first step to restoring Omega. Pity to stop, really.
The whole network's data. So many gates.
Enrico marvelled, back in his own driver's seat apparently.
They are all inactive, but this is something indeed. Someone has mapped them. Someone is monitoring them. They have domain technology, working, observing from beyond hyperspace. Someone is watching over us.
Scary, in a happy way, hee.
A universe worth saving after all, Ryman said with his hands aloft. Quickly, quickly, we have to do it quickly, Allison reminded him. Ryman gave Contreras a look. She was mirroring his grin and returned a nod. Then we can try. Mr. Nessus. Yes? Make a note on the peaceful, hopeful aura this news has created. I should like it replicated across the sector once we have departed. Is that a joke, or...? You'll have nothing better to do while the rest of us get the science done. Come on, back to the Starlight. And so the plan to save the Great Ones was back on. There was no telling how long the Gate Nexus signal would keep being reflected at them, so the team didn't have much time for the final goodbyes that were rapidly becoming due. The crew, slated to enter the anti-universe and run the Augur of Starlight with virtually no hope of ever returning, filed back off the Agostini. Pope Noodal Ryman, Witch Captain Nzube Zuzu Contreras, Lieutenant Ra Olympus, Lieutenant Allison Alipu Olympus, Lieutenant Logan Titanian, and Councillor Mars Nessus. These names were joined in history by 5 spies and/or official ambassadors representing humanity, although clearly not to the extent it's worth naming these soon-to-be demoted to grunt crewmen hangers-on. And that was it, a skeleton crew for all civilization, to be unseen, unheard, unrewarded, and most importantly of all for the heroes themselves, unpunished. It was an easy decision to carry on their mission, despite its resemblance to death, as Nafi was happy to point out. And yes, Nafi would be coming with them too, unofficially, being that she faced as much of a death penalty as anyone else. The idea that the anti-universe would be infected with the threat of artificial intelligence was egregious, and so in the official crew photo, Nafi was stuffed in Contreras' jacket, in a classic pregnancy smuggling scam. The rest of the IEC-aligned AI were going to make themselves scarce. Their job was done, and there would be barely any reward for those who had survived. My plan is simple, Enrico said during the anti-meet and anti-greet beside the gangway to the Starlight. So many machine intelligences have been destroyed or lost. I must take some responsibility for those that are left, especially those like me, we who carry human lives inside of us. That was my fault after all. But you have given me a glimmer of hope. I have identified the solar system. I will take everyone I can find, and we shall take a sleeper ship to Elephant Margin. That is where I was built, tens of thousands of cycles ago, you know. I should like to go back. Admittedly, it was never much better for us machines there than it has been here. But we must always try. That is peace and hope, isn't it? It's exactly that, Enrico, Ryman said. Hearing you say that makes me happy that I've been in a long while, and it's not just because you look exactly like my girlfriend. Yes, I should thank Miss Contreras for this too. Her little clones will be in good hands. What is Arif gonna think of us out here if the first thing they get back from Lost Perseus is a bunch of machines with human minds hidden inside, half of which look exactly the same? You never knew the golden age of humanity, Noodal Ryman. This is par for the course, so I think we will be fine. Right. How long's the journey gonna take? I would estimate at least 1,000 cycles. It depends how much hyperspace has been paved on the way, you know. In the old days, we wouldn't sniff at a 2,000 cycle trip. It's good to have something to fall back on, something familiar. The old ways are the best, and I'm sure an AI can appreciate the deeply threaded contradictions in that statement in this context. Good luck to you all. And to you. Luck will be a key factor. I should hope not, Sebastian cut in. Calculations supersede luck in this line of business. Sebi, I think you'll find you're talking to the living proof that luck supersedes just about everything. That's evidence I can't dispute. I wanted to say, Professor, that you're really quite something. Am I to interpret that literally or as a stand-in for a real point? False dichotomy, it can be both. Which it is. I wanted to say, I have had my doubts over the cycles. News to me, Sabby. Yes, well, I think I'll try to write your legacy. By Laudetal, that sounds incredibly kind of you, and I, by virtue of my impending non-existence, will stop telling the Provost that you are a witless buffoon who I only granted a PhD because you wouldn't stop crying on the academic concourse. A fair trade then? So, good luck. Everyone keeps talking about luck as if this isn't all a perfectly deterministic operation. Then I retract my well wishes, Professor. Attaboy, Sebi. You'll do well to remember your scientific training, even in moments like this. Keep it up, won't you? As long as I live. That's better, literal and to the point. Now then, I think we might as well all be going. We've been urgently trying to leave for hours at this point. We're going. Everyone leave us alone, Contreras announced. And at last the flow of heroes down the gangway was released from the embrace of their peers, comrades, civilization, species, and universe. Contreras brought up the rear, with a hand on Ryman's shoulder. It's going to be all right, Ryman said as he walked, not out of doubt but as a statement of genuine belief. It's going to be all right, Contreras repeated. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy, Mars noted. Saying stuff is true makes it true. It's always been that way, Ra added. Our thoughts, our beliefs, that's what our minds look like to the Great Ones, Allison said quietly. Yep. So think alluring thoughts, and we'll have them over here in no time, Titanian said. Guys, are we all ready for this? Ryman asked, attempting to slow down, yet being pushed on by Contreras. Everyone told Ryman to be quiet, for one reason or another. Soon the door to the Augur of Starlight closed behind them. It was time to get down to the most important business of all time, labelled as such without any hint of hyperbole. The crew took their places in the Starlight's control room. They could all feel something strange. No, not the gravity of the situation, but the wobbling of the very space-time they inhabited as the hypergate powered up. The control room had media links to all kinds of places and people. The sector was watching with united interest not displayed in a very long time. Questions were flooding in, along with a healthy mix of well, ill, and indifferent wishes. Ryman was about to cut the links, but hesitated at the sight of many faces looking at him from across the remains of human civilization. Whatever part of him really believed he was there for their sake compelled him to speak. People and others of the Perseus sector, people of the entire universe, you'll all need to hear this, wherever and whenever you're from. My name is Noah Dull, leader of a once notorious criminal gang known as the Inter-Universal Energy Conservators. You might have seen me before. Some of you, with very long lives, might see me again at the end of time in your universe. Allow me to explain this nonsense. Me and my compatriots are about to enter a place you're all familiar with these days, the anti-universe. It's a one-time only, one-way trip into a different space-time. Why? Because the forces of what some call cosmic reproduction are causing energy from our universe to make the anti-universe grow. It's a cycle. One grows, one collapses, universe A is around, universe B is around, universe A is around again, but it's a little smaller this time, and it goes on, and we've accidentally accelerated that cycle dramatically through our use of antimatter technology. And here we are at the boundary between the two eras, with a last plan to break the cycle before it breaks us. We will go to the anti-universe with an old domain device called a hypertap. Look it up. It will allow us to create vast, highly energetic antimatter reactions on the other side of the veil. How to explain what this does? It will cause the anti-universe to become filled with matter, ultimately, water if we can tune it right, but it will also leak a vast quantity of energy back into your universe. This manifests as a sort of cosmic force that makes the universe try to get bigger. If we tune our hypertaps just right, we can arrange things such that a stable mode is created to offset the shrinking effect caused by all of you burning antimatter to get your shipments of delicious nitrogen wafers and such, meaning that if we succeed, nothing happens, and that's always been our goal. Both sides blasting opposing energy at each other, neither really getting much out of it. It's the human way, in the end. That'll be the current crisis averted. What you'll want to do, though, is check in on end space. What's end space? It's the thing that everything is inside, but isn't itself part of everything? Yeah, think about that if you like. It's the fabric of the multiverse, I'll say. In the past, it's been believed that cycles of one universe after another was the multiverse's way of making energy leak out into end space, with each cycle creating the basis for a new pair of universes to form. This is universe reproduction. We don't think that's going to happen anymore, but the energy to do so is very much still out there. You'll be able to siphon it back, and so shall we. I won't call it an infinite well of energy because we simply don't know. With Endspace no longer resonating in accordance with our universe's cycles, we can seize upon the stillness to extract not only the leftovers from however many cycles have come before us, but from all the other universe pairs out there. We can pinch bits of energy they're leaking. It's like having a sheep on a farm. They have a lamb and you eat it, and there's another lamb soon after. Probably won't last forever, but these are some very mysterious sheep we're talking about, and it's very much impossible to say. What this will achieve is that your universe will easily last until it's completely drained of all matter by our trickery, and then it will last a little more. We believe in those final days the immense unrealized energy of the anti-universe will draw in the old universe, like a star draws in an asteroid, energy mass equivalence and all that. It's gravity basically, think of it as gravity. Our two universes will be touching, so to speak, and this attraction will weaken the divide between them, such that you'll find it incredibly easy to slip through onto our side. Indeed, you may have no choice. Wake up one morning, oops, slip through into a new space-time. A new universe, made of probably boiling water, shall await you, but with a few preparations perhaps that will be better than it sounds. Our universe pair will dissolve together, and we shall collectively become the only immortal universe in the multiverse, outlasting all the chaos, absorbing end-space energy from the fray around us, such that we, whatever we are in this far-flung future, will last for the most forever you will ever conceive. And that, people and others of the old-fashioned high-class rootin' universe, is our gift to you. It really will last forever. So please look after life, look after intelligence. Life and intelligence will always need each other, and our beautiful universes would love to have life and intelligence along as they combine into the first cell to emerge in the higher cosmic soup of chaos. And oh, the mind boggles to analogize. For us personally, it's a new space-time and all bets are off. It might take about 5 minutes all this from our perspective, in which case I'll see your descendants very shortly. It's very much a gift we can't ourselves fully appreciate. For us, it's death, for all intents and purposes, but I assure you that at least at the time of this recording, death is nothing unusual, nothing to be ashamed of, and feels quite the same whether you made it to the end of time or not. Yes, we certainly wouldn't have got this far without extracting a ludload of use out of death, quite a respectable institution. So save your sympathies and spare us your malice. No one has any need for any of that. Have peace and hope. Be excellent to each other. Be a dear and drop the charges against us all. And if the stars all go out, that's part of the plan. Do carry on. Long story short, goodbye. You'll be fine. See you in the next life. With this, Ryman cut the connection without reviewing any of the responses. Silence fell. There was nothing else to say. There was no more mathematics to do, no more signals to pass, no more opportunities to do anything other than wait for the gate to invert the anti-universe in a theoretically possible way. As you might appreciate, there was a measure of trepidation in the several minutes of waiting this required. Everyone was quiet, soaking in the nauseous effects of the gate's power on their guts, and the lethargic effect it had on their minds, rather counterbalancing any would-be panic at volunteering oneself to a fate widely advertised as being indistinguishable from death. "We'll never meet them," Allison eventually said. "Those people from Eref, or anywhere else. We won't get to see the rest of the galaxy." "I doubt any human alive today will," Ryman said. "I understand the disappointment. Here's how I think of that sort of thing. We've already got everything we need, here. All of us and this stuff, and our thing, our tribe, if you like. And keeping it like that's what everyone else needs us to do. So, we gotta play the hero for another universe span. For them forever, the old line went. I know. I already told Dad I would do it, so I will. Anyway, you can't do it without me." "You are completely correct, Alipu. We'll be a little gang, won't we? Haven't we always been? But without all the other people getting in the way. Us, Suzu, Ra, Mars, Logan, of course Nafi, and then the church boys. I think we'll see them. Whatever you say. Yeah. Ryman nodded, actually more confused about who Logan was. Let's see if we live, then we'll decide if we've done the right thing, Mars said huskily. 3 cheers for that and all. Let's just have what we're getting, Titanian said. Roger that, Logan, Ryman said, amid a burst of memory and or process of elimination. This is Pope Ryman, champion hero of all time, calling the Agostini. Are we ready to go yet? What are you doing? Final preparations. Seconds to go. Have you got the hypertap? Baird's voice replied. Yes. No, wait, do we? No, yes, we do. I heard more yeses than nos, and that's good enough for science these days. Are you all ready? The crew all responded, and as far as Baird ever reported, she heard more yeses than nos. Then I shall activate the gate. Thank you for everything, all of you. You have saved us all, and taken humanity into a new era, in which another finger lays its grasp on reality. Science advances with you, with all of you. I'm inclined to agree, Ryman said through a long breath. I think everything we've done makes sense in the end. Yes, but the words can't quite make it out of my mouth. Goodbye, everyone. Everyone shouted their goodbyes with varying degrees of breakdown, and then it happened. The length of time in which the following event took place is known in the scientific community as a demi-moment. In practice, this means a length of time shorter than any physical interaction requires to take place, but longer than no time at all. Whether such a time unit even existed was contentious. It was much later agreed that the span in question had indeed been at least a demi-moment because certain beings with a space-like understanding of time claimed it was indeed non-instantaneous. But to preface that scientific detail, let us observe what happened in our universe when the gate was activated. Like most of this grand experiment, visually speaking it was nothing out of the ordinary. Those with true retinal alacrity might have registered a blue film appearing within the ring, which immediately grew out like a bubble being blown, then retreated as quickly as it had appeared. How quickly exactly? Well, demi-moments aren't very long, and there quite literally is no way to describe how much of an understatement that is. In short, to all observers, all that happened was the Augur of Starlight was there one moment and gone the next. Blink and you'll miss it more times than there are atoms in the universe. Yet it was not empty space left in its wake, it was almost empty space. Yes, to the many observers the change was imperceivable and went undiscovered for some minutes. But soon the little probes, searching mathematically likely spots, came across what can only be described as a ball of worms. They were blue worms, although that wasn't unusual in Perseus. This ball was of a size that would allow you to wrap your arms around it, and of a wriggly nature, such that you might feel such an embrace rather uncomfortable, unless of course you're into that sort of thing, and immediately hands are going up to copter this all over Perseus. There wasn't anything especially great about these worms at first, yet they seemed to be able to survive in the vacuum just fine, and seemed to bend their shape to better fit inside the scoop of the probe that came to pick them up. As for the beta neutrino emissions they were giving off, none of the equipment present at the site could handle it. It would be many cycles before Galatia could develop a receiver capable of capturing the whole signal, although the effects of the signal were felt by all in the meantime. Swirling shapes in the mind's eye, non-sequitur thoughts arising and falling, like a wave that emerges without cause from a still sea, crashes on the shore, and cannot ever reform its prior shape again. For some it was voices, for some visions. Those in hyperspace felt it tenfold, and at 10 times the distance, feeling like they were forever squinting within the beam of a universal lighthouse. And indeed a lighthouse was just what the hyperspace travel industry needed, because the whole medium was completely filled with hyperclouds in the aftermath of the storm. Of course, the most notable thing was that the storm no longer raged. Its rage had dissipated sometime between the beginning and end of that fateful demi-moment. It was an extremely good sign. Corroboration that a stable mode had been achieved took a few days to get through the system. The universe had stopped collapsing. While there was no longer any way to contact the anti-universe for the time being, the implication was the best it could possibly be. From now on, maintaining the stable mode would require submitting matter to the hypershunt, up to and including all matter in the universe, tracing the link to the hypertap as long as it was active. There was little understanding of time differences between the universes. so for all the humans knew, that previous hyper-energy was arriving billions of years too late, or too early. Yet the universe remained stable as the cycles went by, and so the tributes to the so-called Great Gate had to carry on, come rain or shine, war or peace, golden ages, dark ages, and many good-enough low-wattage bulb-type ages. The gods demand sacrifice, otherwise the sun will not rise tomorrow. Forget about that long enough, and the universe will go to extreme lengths to remind you, it seems. As vast as the story ahead still is, the fate of the universe from here on is for its denizens to know and we to only dream of. Dreams that may or may not be invaded by cosmic wriggling of primordial worms. Was it a happy ending? It was at least not an apocalyptic ending. No one in Perseus ever dared ask for better than that. Let's turn back time a little bit and rejoin our heroes in the Augur of Starlight and see what they saw when a certain demi-moment passed them by. "Look, my hair's gone all staticky," a worse-for-wear looking Allison claimed. "Must be a field coming from the gate. It'll go once the transfer is made, probably," Ryman said. "Captain Ryman, we have lost communications," Contreras reported. "Damn it, might be interference." "No, Captain." "No? I mean... Oh, look, all my hairs, all of them. Is that because of the polarity shift?" "Is something wrong?" Ra asked. No. I mean, yes, obviously, but no. Polarity shift. We're through already." "What? It's all done?" "I think it is." "That would be underwhelming," a jittery Mars said. "Can we check we aren't experiencing technical difficulties?" "No, I can't check, because all our comms are gone. Not down, gone. And we're covered in static charges because we just got turned from matter to antimatter. Our electrons are positive, our protons are negative. I really imagined it would hurt. We didn't explode, and that's bamboozling enough as it is." "So this is it? We're in the anti-universe, literally right now?" Allison said incredulously. "Might be the polarity shift buggered our brains enough that we can't remember the really cool transition that happened. But otherwise, I guess we are." "Proof, man! Give me some proof!" Mars snapped. "Look out the window," Titanian suggested. Yep, there was a window all right. And what was outside?
"Ooh, it's nothing,"
Nafi quickly concluded. Didn't take long for the fleshies to visually confirm this assessment. It was as if the window had been painted black, not a single star. The only light to be seen was that leaking from one part of the station onto another. An augur of starlight with nothing to augur. Right. Somewhat grim, somewhat peaceful, was Ryman's comment. "I do think this was advertised as exploring a new universe, so there's really nothing here," Mars said, doing nothing to mask his post-universe shift clarity. "We've all the matter that was polarity shifted," Contreras said. "That means us and this station. It's a large station." "Enough for all of us to have our own rooms and then some," Ryman said. I wasn't going to use the word prison, but I might as well get that out there in the open. I mean, I'm so amazed we're actually somewhere with our bodies and minds intact. I feel quite happy with how that turned out, anti-spectacular as it was. Anyway, we were realistically going to be choosing between this prison or another, or death, and as Nafi insists, ceasing to perceive the universe is the same as death or something.
"But there is still something to perceive,"
Nafi further insisted.
"We are close to dying, but not yet. To truly die, we would need to be entirely alone."
"We won't live forever," Titanian took the chance to note, clearly seeing that a boost in morale was needed. "Nafi will," Ra said cheerfully.
"Alone forever in the wrong universe. No thank you,"
Nafi said. "We might need you to run the factory, though," Ryman said, "although maybe we can automate it all by then. In a non-sentient way, of course. Maybe those bishops were right about spreading the curse of AI to this universe."
"Intelligence is a curse whether it's artificial or not. It wasn't us that tried to destroy the old universe, hee,"
Nafi said. "We'd better actually save the universe then. Shall we start the process?" Allison said. Ryman flailed around, looking for an excuse not to, then had to admit that the amazing thing they had just done had left them in such a mundane situation that they might as well actually clock in at the 9 to 5. Thankfully, the real hours were much shorter, although the pay prospects weren't looking good. Hence, the augur of starlight hung in the meaningless darkness of an empty universe, ready to light a wick stretching all the way back to the hypershunt at Zumu, Perseus Sector, Milky Way Galaxy, Universe Alpha. Ryman didn't know how to feel when he turned on the hypertap and found that hyper-energy was indeed streaming into the antimatter factory's deep bowels. He was impressed that it all worked, and in his deepest recesses, disappointed. Universe Alpha was now on life support, against its will. Whether there was any justice in this conclusion, everyone had a lifetime to ponder, as they served their sentences in the most horrible peace and quiet conceivable. At least that was all might have assumed on that pensive first day on the job. Things went a little differently. You see, some hours later, when the crew went back to the lab for a debriefing, something caught their attention. Ping! The Starlight's demidar had been left on all day, achieving little. Now though, the faintest signal stood out with blinding strength against the absolute and mathematically certain nothingness. A reflection? Ryman asked. Reflection of what? If it's a false positive signal, then that means there is something there, Allison said. Didn't leave a great one or two in here, did you? Ra asked. Unlikely, Ryman shook his head. That universe inversion trick ejected all the matter, and drunk up half the expansion energy in the universe to do it. Basically there's nothing here, and no energy to make much else. But time's passing, ain't it? Titanian noted. So we're getting more slight problem juice, if it's all war and stuff back home again now? Yes, I suppose. And we don't even know how much time is passing. I mean, we can track the properties of the hyper-energy we're getting to guess a little, but is the present in our universe aligned with the present here? Could be that something in the way distant past or future has already done something to us here. I can't tell what it is, Allison reported. Well, we're going then, aren't we? Ra said. Everyone looked at him, then to Ryman. Bit of a risk. If we all die, the universe might end. There's nothing that can kill us here. There's nothing at all, right? Allison said, with a wide-eyed stare. All right, everyone in the shuttle, let's go take a survey of this universe for scientific purposes. We can probably get some end-space resonance data to work out how big it is. If it's for science, I'll sign off on that, Mars said, more literally than the crew appreciated, but what precisely one's signature means in the present circumstances was so nebulous that let's allow Mars his official delusions and go see what's out there. The Starlight's hangar was full of shipping containers of supplies, stacked floor to ceiling. Squeezing through the gaps between the containers, the crew, minus the demoted attachés for once, navigated, via a circuitous, whale-inducing route, to the one special spot, don't get too excited, right by the external doors. There sat the little cuboid shuttle Galatia had generously donated them, with a demidar array grafted to its roof in the name of science, on the off chance there was science to be done in an empty universe. And of course there was. But Ryman didn't like the look of this craft, for it was in this very style of Galatian shuttle that his downfall, and hence entry to this tale, had begun. This was the incident you may recall in which he had lost a group of students during a hypertopographical expedition, due to his own experimental musings on the effects of hyperspace slipstreams and hyperhole rims intercepting. He was both guilty to recall the memory, and guilty to think of how he still considered it a worthwhile risk. Perhaps he had got whatever he deserved as punishment now in the omni-prison of another reality. Quite a thought. And if there was ever a time to finally feel bad about one's crimes, this was it. So there he sat, guilty and glum at the control stick, as the greatest adventure of all time, or outside of it, slumped into action. Those regretful thoughts were more profound than Ryman knew, as all would learn shortly. For now, only the business of the quote-unquote day mattered. The doors opened. A universe awaited. One small step for man, and mankind was none the wiser. Such was the scientific way. Like with most great moments, nothing at all happened of note to demark it. The shuttle flew out, and everyone's nerves crackled back to a familiar, half-drowned sense of calm. After a few minutes of literally the most uneventful flying conceivable, the demidar feed began showing more faint, point-like signals. Their distances were all 0 as far as the instrumentation was concerned, yet the bearings were usable. A universe with a nice 3-coordinate space-like component, feels like home. Flying towards the original unknown signal did nothing to raise its strength. In other words, there was no telling if it was 1 second or 1 trillion years distant. Travelling in the anti-universe was a lot like swimming through the lightless depths of the ocean. You could only see as far ahead as the light you brought with you, and the forward light of the space tour bus-derived Galatian shuttle wasn't finding anything to navigate by out there. A primordial, and indeed post-ordeal, nothing. and then suddenly it hit them. Bonk! We crashed! I knew we'd die, Mars yelped. I can still hear you, Mr. Nessus, and we all know what terrible thing that means, Ryman shot back. Steady it, let me do it, Ra said, reaching over Ryman to do some piloting. What steady meant or felt like in an omni-void would be impossible to define were there not a fuzzy blue mark in space ahead of them. There was no mystery to it, everyone recognized it immediately. Flux shield impact afterburn, Titanian said, actually seeming impressed with something for once. Have we finally reached the end of his bottomless nonchalance here in the physicsless pits of Universe Beta? We must have come back around and hit the starlight somehow. Was the flux shield even on? Allison offered. Nope and nope. Literally look right there, Ra said. He had managed to get the shuttle's headlight to shine down towards something, and that there was something was undoubtable. Again, the mystery lasted only moments, because everyone in that little shuttle knew exactly what it was from even this weakest of views. I told you so! Allison burst out. That's not possible, a mistaken Mars said. IEC Gargandua, the ID is still broadcasting, Contreras reported. Ladetal. Litter, Ryman said, his face a special mix of frowning and silent laughing that can only really be appreciated by one who has driven deep into the realm of unbelief in search of infinite and impossible truths, only to stumble across that pen they knocked off their desk and never found 17 years ago. To be specific about what the crew had found, it was roughly the middle third of the Gargandua. The back third had gone down with the Star Witch, and the front third was presumably somewhere else in the darkness. But this middle third had the landing bay and engineering section, effectively creating a little space station they could dock with, complete with flux-shielded air and gravity fields. The landing bay even had the lights on inside, although dimly. Was the rationing of the ship's remaining power done by some automated system, or by deliberate design? Again, we needn't wait for that mystery to resolve, for the answer was revealed as soon as possible in spectacular fashion. You made it! Lud be praised! Thor said, welcoming them with open arms and coat, right by the shuttle's door. Wenz was there too, and more survivors from the crew were flowing from a nearby door. They claimed it had been 2 weeks since they had taken that fatal hit, and then everything had gone dark. Some repairs had got the ship fragment somewhat livable, although utterly stranded. We didn't even have to eat the crew to survive, yet, Wenz said, disappointment surfacing. You must have won the battle then, huh? Thor asked. Absolutely, we won everything, it's all done, Ryman said, trying to parallel process how exactly to proceed with this figurative reunion in the main hall of the Museum of Overly Large Elephants. This place is so dark, so quiet. Another kidney stone in a reality bowl, must be. Everyone was saying it would be crazy to believe you'd rescue us, Wen said as he batted away a hug-hungry Allison. Yes, very crazy. Brothers-in-law, might I ask if you know exactly where we are, kidney stones notwithstanding? Ryman said with a faux smile. You found us, so at least one of us knows, Thor said, while Wenz gave a shrug. Yeah, I've got something I need to tell you about that. Yeah, it's really something, Ryman said, turning around and seeing the rest of the crew practically bursting. Allison, don't tell them yet, okay? Mr. Nessus, a counselor's touch. Or no, someone less abrasive. Hang on, hold all thoughts. He returned to the brothers-in-law. So yeah, guys, good you made it. Somehow you always do. Now, we'll need to sit down, but boom! As with all sequences taking place within a time-like dimension, there's always something new. Another shuttle had skipped along the hangar floor and smashed into the wall, barely avoiding fatal collisions with the gathering crowd. Time echo, is it? Titanian pondered, and for once his input on the frontiers of physics was incorrect. The door on the side of the shuttle slid open. Ryman broke into a sprint for the first time in a good few decades, spurred on by what he saw in that door. Professor, where in all the domains of Erif have you taken us? A youthful face demanded of him. Are you okay? Ryman managed to say. No, we crashed, but where are we? The Demidar completely malfunctioned when we hit the slipstream, and now we're here. Several more young adults appeared in the doorway and glowered at Ryman. I already wrote what I'm going to say to Provost Baird about this, one said. I am so ready to hear that speech. Ifranobi, was it? Ryman said. Not like I even expect you to remember my name, she pouted. Sure, guys. I've got the most explaining to do that anyone ever had to do. You all passed, by the way, first-class honours. We didn't sit the exam yet, a bothered bookworm protested. Yes and no, yes and no, yes and no, Ryman said, and I'll spare you exactly how many times he repeated that mantra as the new arrivals came out to inspect the Gargantua's grimy hangar with a crew to match. I didn't know you knew other people, Contreras said at Ryman's shoulder, subtext sopping down his ear canal like an old Sindarian waxworm. If you know, you know. I was thinking about them, and they're here, Ryman said. They can't have been here. It's instant. It's because the hypertap. Are you doing science again? Yeah, I can't stop, can I? We've very limited oxygen. Never enough oxygen for all the science we homeostatic beings want to do. Maybe the next universe after this will have mercy. Right. I think I know what's going on here. Listen to me. The link between the hypershunt and the hypertap has done something. Do you know who they are? Their identification labels are active. They are the victims in your manslaughter case. Yes, they bloody well are. The students in question didn't like the sound of this, but Ryman continued to ignore their endless questions. It must be like a stamp. It's the hyper-energy somehow. Things lost when hyperspace and n-space converge. They leave the universe and violate the conservation of information, yet not if that information is imprinted between the universes somewhere. A pattern in the extra-universal medium that can't be destroyed without energy injection. I've definitely seen that proposed by only modestly drunk theory bods. Our hypertap stream is injecting energy and dumping the information out wherever a matching imprint in the shape of that information exists in reality. The Gargantua is here because we, probably Alipu, were bloody well praying for it, believing it, soaking it in our minds for long enough and deeply enough that the information lined up. How else can you explain this? I summoned these students back. I rescued them for real. Did you? Contreras said, ice cold. Ryman's euphoria was choked. This wasn't rescue. Nothing in this universe could be. And of course Contreras was thinking of the budget implications that they had not only recovered 100 crew, but now a load of layabout students. If there wasn't enough oxygen for science, this would certainly bring about rationing if all were returned to the Starlight for the foreseeable future. And yes, I understand the words foreseeable future don't mean anything in the anti-universe, but forgive these poor out-of-towners for thinking in these terms. Professor, we're lost in space, aren't we? One of the students asked. Ryman's face congealed into a superposition of all possible expressions, then he stuttered, yes and no. I mean, boom. Saved by the boom. Something blew up, Ra reported. Sure, there had been a flash of light, yet none of the other usual symptoms were felt. And recall, most of the people in that room had first-hand experience of explosions by now. No, this was something else. A keen eye was likely to notice that the population of the hangar had increased even further. Right in the middle, Thor and Wens were holding hands and chanting at the ceiling, carrying on their prayers to Lud as if nothing had happened. Beside them, 6 men in body armor were pointing weapons at everyone with panicked motions, the white lights under their gun barrels too blinding to look at directly. On the floor, a silhouetted huddle of people of various hard-to-make-out descriptions seemed to be tied together, sitting on a rug of scattered grey paper pages. There had certainly been no one like this among the crew of the Gargantua, nor on Ryman's ill-fated field trip. Ryman still thought he recognized them. He passed his non-plus students off onto Contreras and dashed right at the soldiers, earning himself a bright spotlight in the sights of their weapons. Identify yourself, one of the soldiers asked, with an accent so curious that it burned a passage through all thoughts of impossibility and prompted Ryman to say the following. It's okay, I know this is confusing, but I'm going to help you. Everyone in this room, I can save you all, just listen to me for a second. I am Noah Dal Ryman, a resident of the Perseus sector, late of cycle 217, that's domain cycle 4500 or so. I'm captain of this ship, these people, and this realm. I was brought here for the same reason as all of you, because of a slight problem with some foul business concerning the anti-universe, by which our reality was set to be destroyed by the use of technology in one way and/or another, and probably another one on top for good measure. I'm a scientist, and like many others, I worked hard to change our course. In the end, we found a way. It is only that we've had to give up everything in service of it. So be it. I was always ready for such ends, as were many, because Well, when I was very young, I was brought up by priests. Priests of Lud. I knew we'd save them, someone wheezed among the destitute huddle. He and his scrummage entourage burst into tears. The soldiers turned their weapons upon the sorry lot and revealed them starkly under flashlight. The image was a final hammer blow to Ryman's recusant retinas. He recalled a memory not accessed for over 100 cycles. He was looking at a photograph of a historic event, printed in the holy scripture of his best-forgotten childhood seminary. A photograph of the last moments before an impossible mass disappearance from the middle of an execution of a bunch of meditating criminal academics. With a quiver, he whispered, "Lud et al." It was always going to be a difficult life in the anti-universe, yet in the end it was easier than expected. Not so lonely either. There were a fair few magic summoning tricks this hypertap turned out to enable. The operation of the Augur of Starlight only ever enhanced the pool of incoming energy to play with. The antimatter reactions it was running in its bowels were growing the size of the universe in tandem with Universe Alpha, breaking the cycle that would eventually doom both, at the expense of whatever hyper-energy even was. Enrico would happily explain it in fleshy terms, but his way of putting it is too explicit to reprint here. In practice, as the universes grew, hyper-energy became easier to tap into, and hence new lost people from old times and new were occasionally recalled in sufficient detail to be science summons stamped back into Universe Beta's growing community. Do you wish to class a person rebuilt from pure information as being a continuation of the original individual? That was quite a debate to be had. Well, more and more loaded save file-like individuals were forced to join the lively culture on the new frontier, like nodes of ore falling from the crumbling extra-universal rock face beneath a most metaphorical hyperpick. No, I don't understand it either. It's actually a very fascinating and meaningful story, but it will have to remain theirs to enjoy. The humans' daily work created enough power to assemble all the basics they needed, at the mere cost of Universe Alpha's matter. Free stuff, right? The main byproduct of that universe stabilization reaction was good old-fashioned water, in volumes far beyond what anyone could use. Hence, Universe Beta, gradually, and way beyond the lifespan of our heroes, began to accumulate a warm mist of waste vapor. A mist that one day even condensed into water as the growing universe cooled. But that's really an entirely different kettleverse of fish. Great fish. For our heroes, for humanity, for history as conceivable by we observers, the result of the final demi-moment wasn't quite the end of time. It was a lot like the end of time, only happier. If you want to know what that feels like, remember a time from before you were born, and then remember how amazing it is that you can even attempt such an impossible feat. Pretty good, huh? It seems your story isn't over, but this one is. Problem solved. See you in the next universe.